Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of AMA's Marketing In. I'm your host, AMA CEO Bennie F. Johnson. Today's episode is special. In our series, we explore life through the marketing lens, delving into conversations with individuals that flourish at this intersection of marketing and the unexpected. Through our series, we'll introduce you to the visionaries whose stories you might not yet have heard of, but are exactly the ones you need to know. Our thought-provoking conversations will unravel the challenges, triumphs, and pivotal moments that have been shaped by marketing. Today's guest is a friend who's truly an innovator. I'd like to welcome today Alex Morrison. Alex became Pearpop's first corporate chief marketing officer in January 2022. Pearpop, you might ask, is trusted by the world's best brands for creator marketing, delivering unrivaled performance on its award-winning platform. It's prior to Pearpop that Alex served as president of Gray Advertising, overseeing the West Coast region, including LA, San Francisco, and Vancouver, and previously served as global managing director for RGA and Content Studio. Alex has had an incredible career of leading with innovation, and it's in his role in Pearpop as the creator collaboration platform that we'd love to welcome him to the podcast today. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Bennie, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. It's such a timely kind of pivot. I remember when you were at Gray Advertising and we had the conversation about you taking on this new role, new startup, new space around this idea of building a more collaborative space for content creators. Now, take me back, not a very long time ago, just 2 years ago, where this was an insight that you had. Talk a bit about what drove you to thinking about being a part of Pearpop.
I like to say that in 2022, I left a 100-plus-year-old company to join a less than 1-year-old company. So that's a big leap to make. And the reason that I decided to do it actually goes back to about 2014 when I was with RGA. And I was, as you mentioned, running their global content studio. And at that time, I saw a stat in might have been Adweek or something like that, that the average high school senior thought this YouTuber, forgot the name of who it was more famous than Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, or anyone else that you and I might have thought of as being an A-list celebrity at that time. And so I thought, how can that be? How can young people shifted so much? So I had to go look into it. And what I saw was pretty amazing. I remember going to VidCon for the first time in 2014. We went to all the MCNs like Maker Studios and Full Screen. And you saw this burgeoning, what is now called the creator economy, really taking off back then. And those were big companies at that time. And so I had this itch that something new happening in this space. And throughout my career, I've really tried to stay focused on where these gaps exist between where marketers are spending their time and budget and where consumers, where audiences are spending their time, right? And so you saw that in the early days of the commercial internet. You saw that in the early days of the commercial social web. And then what you started to see with creators was, wow, people are spending a huge amount of time with creator content, but marketers are kind of asleep on this one. And so at that time, in the context of RGA, founded what we called Creator Studio inside RGA. And we built a really good practice, the first one ever at RGA, around creator marketing. Fast forward a few years, I end up going to take the role at Gray that you mentioned. But in the back of my mind, and partly because there's such a vibrant ecosystem around this space here in LA, but around the world now, this is taking off in a huge way. I knew that this was a space that I wanted to revisit, and I just didn't know when or how it was going to happen. And then there was a very, very serendipitous moment that happened in mid-2021 where through a mutual friend, I got connected to this dynamic young founder, Cole Mason, who's the founder of Pearpop. And it was really just I was blown away by how clearly he could see the future of the creator space and how brands would intersect into that. He had built some pretty amazing tools out of the gate, but what he needed was a partner to help bring it to life in the market. And it took a lot of introspection and closing your eyes before you leap. But I decided to do it. And, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made because Pearpop is really a special offering in the creator space. And, all the cliches about startup life are true, but, we're thriving. And, to be a part of this ride has been something I wouldn't trade.
I love from the bio. It acknowledges that you all have been noted already with that short period of time as one of Fast Company's most innovative companies, right? You've been honored in that space. But it talks about Pearpop helping a community. I love that assist right there. Helping a community of more than 200,000 creators earn a living doing what they love, while also giving brands instant and direct access to collaborate with relevant, authentic, brand safe creators. So relevant, authentic, and brand safe. That one statement is loaded with a lot of kind of good insight that you have there. Talk a bit about how you started to kind of bring this together, helping a community connect both as creators and as the brands that need to work together.
So one of the things that really separates Pearpop from a lot of creator marketing companies is that we are fundamentally a creator first company.
Right.
So our mission is to help creators earn a living doing what they love. Any creative person, I've been a musician throughout my life. Anyone with a creative bone in their body knows, there's that moment when you have to decide, am I going to go for this professionally or am I going to sit it out and take a corporate route, right? And for a lot of people, myself included, the path was just too difficult to see in this sort of truly creative path, right? And that keeps so many people away from doing the thing they truly love, right? And I thought, what better mission to get behind than to help people with creative spark pursue that spark professionally and do what they love. And the beautiful thing about the creator space is that it's really the new gateway to entrepreneurialism for a whole new generation, right? I mean, If you're going to start the new Procter & Gamble, if you're going to start the new media company, and you're a 20-year-old in 2024, you should start by building an audience, building a personality, a rapport with people, and then you can start to figure out where you want to take that, right? This is an unbelievable opportunity for creative people. So I think on that side of what we do, it's incredibly inspiring. And we've built a community of, about 250,000 creators who trust us to bring them opportunities that allow them to earn a living doing what they love. And then for the brands, of course, if we're just thinking about creators, at the end of the day, we need to make sure we are delivering an amazing solution for brands that meets their needs and surprises them with things they didn't even know to ask for, right? And so I think on the brand side of the house, the real magic of Pearpop is in the name, really. It's pairing the right brands and creators using data, right? And so our dynamic matching algorithm, which is the sort of beating heart of what we do here, helps for any brief, any brand, parameters that we might receive. We can find a really, really great short list of creators that meet those parameters. And then we'll lay human eyes on them as well. So it's this sort of man and machine working together to ensure full compliance with the brief, as well as brand safety, right? And not just brand safety, but is it brand suitable? Is it actually advancing the brand, right? We can go beyond do no harm, right? How can creators actually be almost an ambassador for a brand to bring them into difficult to reach communities and audiences, right? That aren't maybe tuning into television apart from key tentpole events, right? And so really it's this two-sided marketplace, creators and brands, and they both need one another, right? And we aim to be a real voice for a productive, positive collaboration between both sides so everyone gets what they need out of it.
Right. What I love about it is you really become an accelerant to a new way of working. So for our guests, those who are listening, Alex had at my invitation, he spoke at our collegiate conference last year. And one of the things that was really amazing to watch was the response of the 20-year-old college students looking at a new world of marketing and coming in and hearing, this was very early on in Pearpop's conversation, but understanding and getting that moment of, I can take the skills that I have and make my way forward and things that I enjoy that I'm learning about in school and apply it in a direct way. We had so many students come to us and talk about how that inspired them to think about new ways into launching their career, which is really powerful. And as I look as you're expanded, now you've come from a classic agency background. What are some of the lessons you take from that hard-earned 100 years of agency that you apply to this really dynamic new space? Because even in the last 2 years, the creator economy has shifted and adjusted. What lessons are you able to impart on this new way forward?
It's a great question because I think a lot of times in a startup, you get very obsessed with this idea of innovation, doing things that are new, doing things that have not been done before. And that's really, really important to what we do. We pride ourselves on that. At the same time, we need to be really simple and easy to use, enjoyable to use for both creators and brands. And so when I think about client experience, brand experience on this platform, one of the things I often say is we don't want anyone to need an adapter plug to know what we're talking about, right? You should be able to, if you care about this metric, we care about that metric. If you care about this outcome, we care about that outcome, right? And so everything that we're doing is about understanding a user's needs, whether it's a large enterprise brand like Amazon or a Microsoft, or a small business or growth stage company. We really take a lot of pride in delivering an amazing experience for them, harnessing the power of creators' creativity. So a big difference, actually, you asked about the similarity, but a big difference is relative to an agency that's pitching on having the best creative ideas or the best strategy. Usually the way we have a conversation with a brand is we say, look, the creators are the star of the show, right? This is the creativity that we need to unlock. And what we do is we help you create the right conditions to not only find the right creators, activate them with success, right? And so we play much more of a role of a partner to the brand and to the creator to help make this a fruitful collaboration, right? And so that's where, I think the similarity is that everyone wants an outcome. They don't want to have to work too hard to figure out what's happening. So simplicity and efficacy, you know what I mean? Like just actually getting the job done. And yeah, like it's cool that we have amazing technology in the box, but if it's not easy to use, like we all have to take a page from Apple at some point in lives, right? And if it's not easy to use, if it's not a pleasure to use, then people aren't going to come back. So that's one of the biggest things I always try to impart on our team, whether it's the product and engineering side or our brand solutions teams, is really making it a joy, really, to work in this space that often is associated with a lot of banging your head against the wall and herding cats and all these kind of things. It's like creators have a tendency to wander off. They're human beings, they have their own ideas. And so if we can make that collaboration a positive one, that's always a focus for us.
So what surprises you about the creative community? Is there anything that, in the last 2 years that surprised you about this kind of untapped community that you're bringing together?
I am always blown away by how switched on, articulate, entrepreneurial, and just like incredible the average creator is. I mean, I think about myself at age 20, and some of them are much older, right? But like the degree of autonomy and self-direction that creators have is mind-blowing to me. There's this word on the street that creators are influencers are shallow and all they're thinking about is hawking fake supplements and this is the baggage that a lot of creators carry around with them. But in fact, this is going back to my earlier comment. Being a creator is really the gateway to any entrepreneurial pursuit that a person could want right now. It's really the best first step, the only first step to build a business in the consumer sphere, right? And so you get these people that are, they really have a real sense of center in themselves. And it's just so cool to see. Like you really don't see it in many places, but the creator space brings it out.
It's so interesting. You talk about people having a space to cross that threshold of making a living doing what they love. Right? Because that's often the threshold in there. Is this sustainable in this space? I was thinking about your reaction that people have with their families. Can you do this? Some of the spaces are often the baggage that we had a generation ago in like direct selling, right? The baggage of if you're going out and creating your own way in this space in there, can you really do this? Is this viable? Well, when you look at creators, the amount of resource that's been invested in there, it makes it possible for someone to actually earn not just a sustaining living, but a thriving living off of doing this work.
The top end of the creator economy, these people are making millions of dollars. Now, obviously, the average creator may not be earning nearly that much. And there have been plenty of statistics that show there's quite a lot of income disparity in the so-called creator economy, right? So just because the top guys are in some pool in the Hollywood Hills doesn't mean everyone is. Mostly I say creators are more likely to be your barista than to be that millionaire model. But people are on their way. And this is the thing, it's a journey. And I think a lot of people in the early days very early days of the creator economy, said, man, I feel bad for these guys. They're gonna get a huge head. They're gonna think they can, they're king of the world, and then someday they're just gonna have to go get a job. But in reality, if you're smart and you're entrepreneurial, this, like everything else in life, can be part of a narrative in how these creators build a life and career. And so the smart ones, and most of them really, really are thinking about this as a means to an end, not the end in and of itself, that they're going to build their voice. They're going to establish their voice. And with that, they can do so much. And they're correct. That really is an amazing thing to watch.
So I'm going to switch to the other side of the marketplace and ask you, what advice do you have for brands who may be looking to move into this space, right? We know the first movers and real creative brands are always going to take the risk in there. But what do you have for that fattier part of the curve of brands and the brand leaders who are listening to this podcast and maybe thinking about exploring creator economy as a part of their marketing mix? What advice would you have?
So first of all, I don't think there's any reason to be scared of getting involved. The creator space is incredibly diverse in every facet, every dimension of that word, right? So there are creators who are risque. There are creators who are absolutely 10 and 2 and keep it dialed into everything you want to say. So 80% of marketers are already in the creator space in some way, shape, or form. If the last 20% are on the line here, I would encourage you to take a good look, because the benefits of participating in the creator space are massive. And what I would say to that is, creators have this uncanny ability to connect with audiences that are very, very difficult to reach through other types of media. I think I mentioned this earlier, but I almost think of them as ambassadors to communities, right? It's not, yes, they create content, and sometimes that content is beautiful and hilarious and all these things. But what they are is really a skeleton key into difficult to reach community. And if you look at them as purely a one-way messenger of your talking points, you're going to get a certain amount of benefit, certainly. We ran a survey recently where we asked creators, what do you wish brands knew about you? And they say, no brand has ever asked me for insights about my audience. I talk to these guys every day. And I think that the true, like the 201 course for the marketer involved in the creator space is start thinking about creators as an extension of your marketing team, right? These are people who can bring you insights, and they can bring your message out into the world in a way that will feel relevant and authentic. So I think that as long as you can do it responsibly, meaning you're not just hiring people and letting them say whatever they want, you're de-risking. And then on the other side of it, you have huge upside in terms of your ability to connect with meaningful audiences for your brand. And not just young people, by the way. That's another misconception. Yes, there is absolutely a concentration of 20-somethings on social media. But by the way, so same with 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds. They're all everyone's spending time doing the vertical scroll these days. So let's face it, we all do it. And so if you do it, the odds are your audience is doing it. And so if you don't have a strategy to engage in that vertical scrolling environment, that's really what's at stake here, is thinking about how do we create content that feels native to that environment, in the same way that years ago we strove to have TV spots that looked as high quality production as the game show they were next to, right? And now we just need to think in a very similar way. What does that content look like that people are loving? And how do we live naturally in that environment with those audiences? And that's what creators really unlock.
Right. And I think your point is really powerful there, that the creators become an insight gateway for you. If you as a brand and as a brand leader are open to listen, right? What can I do? Yes, I can get you to the corner with what you've delivered to me, but we can unleash the entire neighborhood if, we can engage in that space in there. And I think it's important for you to talk about community. Community isn't just defined by proximity or age. So we've got creators who, are across all 4 major generations in our marketplace who are driving value for the brands, right?
Absolutely. So the first thing when a brand starts to get serious about the creator space is they want to understand who the right creator partners might be to bring in as collaborators, right? And that's where the use of data is really, really important. Not just about the creators, but about the content they tend to create, as well as the audience they have an ability to reach. There is data available now on not just who the creator is on face value, but look beyond that creator to who they are reaching. And then you can map that back to audiences you really care about. And I guarantee you, it is any audience that you're thinking about reaching, there is a creator or many creators that have a high degree of persuasiveness within those communities. And so if you do the work or hire a partner that helps you do the work to identify the creators that will bring you into those spaces and places, then it becomes about collaboration and really creating, at first you may not think about hiring a creator for a long period of time. It might be a one-off. But really thinking about how every time you do a one-off, it's almost like a little mini audition. Like maybe this could work out. This person could become someone that works with us over a period of months or even years. And so I think keeping that openness to ongoing collaboration is really important.
So we'll switch back. We'll toggle in the marketplace. How have you been able to help creators mature as business leaders? It's one thing to create content. It's another thing to have your content become your business. How have you all been able to help partner with these emerging creators to build their business enterprises?
It's a great question. And you look at some of the top creators from Mr. Beast and Feastables and Emma Chamberlain and Chamberlain Coffee. I mean, these are some huge consumer brands, not to mention Prime Hydration, as polarizing as that can be. And even going back half a generation to The Honest Company and Casamigos. I think of them as creators because they first were movie stars, but it's very much from a similar cloth where at a certain point in time, and in certain categories this is still true, the biggest advantage was distribution, right? Getting your stuff into the right shelves. And I think in packaged goods and food, this is still a massive, massive advantage that is needed to get to scale. But in many businesses, where you can sell direct online, or it's a digital product, that advantage goes away. And now you're talking about, okay, who has the ability to reach and connect with an audience the fastest? And that is your unfair advantage. So we're always thinking about, okay, well, yes, there's the Mr. Beasts and the Emma Chamberlains and the Jake Pauls and all this stuff. But every creator, I think, is at least starting to have this thought process of, well, should I be attaching my name to a new product? Should I be developing my own offering? And then, this unlocks a whole different topic, which you may or may not want to get into, which is affiliate marketing. Because if you don't launch your own brand, what you do is you start to think about brands you can attach yourself to as a sort of supercharged creator economy style affiliate. And this is taking off like crazy because then the work on the creator's part is minimal. But what they're doing is taking a share of every sale, right? And creators are making a lot of money that way. I mean, it's turning into a pretty big share of the creator economy as a whole. I think the 2023 estimate was the affiliate marketing space was about a $17 billion industry in and of itself. And that's not even counting for all the other creator work that's going on. So creators have a huge economic opportunity if they lean into it. And for people who want to launch new products, new music, new films, whatever it may be, that's kind of what I was getting at, is they built a platform from which they can launch new things. And that's ultimately for the forward-looking folks, the opportunity.
It's so true. And what you've really described is kind of age-old adage that you're betting on yourself, right? Because you can take a fixed fee contract, or you can say, I know I generate this audience. The platform, my experience, my brand shows that I have this reach. I trust that my community will follow through, and I'm going to bet on myself to earn out through the transaction.
That's right. That's right. And, it's interesting because I'd be remiss if I didn't make a comment on creator compensation to some degree, which is to say both are valid, right? Like affiliate compensation and a commission-based structure is great. But many creators really do prefer to have some fixed fee component to what they do. And the way I look at that is for the really good creators, like the top folks who brands might really dream of working with, I think of it as almost like a base salary and a bonus, right? It's like, okay, you want someone to show up to work and do their job. It's quite helpful to pay them a salary, right? On the flip side, if you want them to exceed and like all performance benchmarks and all this, giving them some variable upside, is a really good idea. And so if you're only going to pay the affiliate fee on a commission basis, what I often say is don't count on them for anything. They might kill it. They might absolutely come through for you, but you can't ask them for deliverables at that point. They might do it. They might over deliver, and they might be your best salesperson of the year. But I would, at that point, think about a law of large numbers kind of strategy where you're getting lots of affiliates lined up. And through that, there's some predictability. But if you want creators to do something for you, typically what we hear from the creator community is, okay, great. What's the fee, right? And that's a very reasonable interaction. I no way would want to make that feel like creators are out of line. They are worth all that and more, most likely.
Right. And what Pearpop does is it creates a safe, equitable space for you to have those conversations, right? And provide you with a certain bit of transparency and structure and norms that are essential to having a good, productive community, right? All marketplaces are built on trust. And if you don't have that space in there, then you cannot advance it. As we look around the corner and we think about the future for creators, what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for creators going into the market the next year?
I think predictability is always a big one for creators because, everyone's always waiting by the phone, so to speak, for their next phone call from a brand or from a collaborator. The best creators are becoming more proactive in how they plan out their activity. And so I think one of the big challenges for creators will be just understanding how they want to structure their income, right? Because there's many ways to succeed as a creator, but if you really want to be reliant on brand deals, the smartest creators are now building their whole presence to be brand safe and appealing to mass market brands, right? And they're getting smarter about, I'm not going to curse. I'm not going to talk about certain topics because that's just polarizing to brands. And you're seeing a greater sophistication emerge. So I think, in many ways, the challenge for creators of predictability could also be the biggest opportunity, which is seizing this moment that we're in of being able to get into the driver's seat. And I would also say the biggest challenge a lot of people cite around the creator space is AI, right? Is every creator going to get replaced by an AI? I take the exact opposite view, which is to say most creators that we talk to are already using multiple AI tools to improve their workflow, their creative brainstorming process. So I think it's to quote Steve Jobs, it is the ultimate bicycle for the mind as it relates to creativity, right? And being able to just have this as a tool set for creators. Put it this way, there are more tailwinds than headwinds in the creator space right now. And so I think the smart creators are just embracing all of these new technologies that are coming out to be just more and more prolific in the kind of output they can put out.
When we started, you were a creative community. And I've noticed the tagline was refined a bit to have creator collaboration. What is this future of collaboration? What do you think that looks like? As brands become more sophisticated and creators, as we mentioned, become more sophisticated, what do you think the opportunities could be for collaboration?
Yeah, it's a very astute observation about our language updating because it does reflect the ever-changing nature of the space, right? So when we started just 3 years ago, one of the novel things about Pearpop was that you could basically turn on what we used to call influence on demand, right? So you had a brief, you needed people at the ready to promote something. Imagine being able to snap your fingers, close your eyes, and all of a sudden 80 people are promoting your new movie release or your new product coming out. But it also, arguably is a little bit transactional in nature, right? These people are showing up as mercenaries and then they disappear, right? And that made a lot of sense in 2021 because the algorithm of TikTok was really, at that time, there was still a huge amount of potential in purely organic reach on that platform. And by playing the numbers game of having lots of creators shouting your name from the rooftop quickly and then disappearing, you could actually catch a little lightning in a bottle sometimes, right? And as things changed, both with the platforms as well as with brands and creators' expectations, what became more and more true is it's important to have these deeper, more authentic collaborations where people started to almost recoil at the idea of these work for hire promoters on behalf of a brand. They wanted to feel, audiences wanted to feel like their favorite creators were aligning with brands, not just shilling for brands, right? And so this idea of a collaboration, I think, is the key to success in the creator space. If you come into it thinking you're just going to go on Fiverr and hire a creator for a quick gig, it's not going to go that well, right? But if you go and do your research and understand who the right partners can be, brief them like true partners, take their questions, give them the information they need, they're going to have a lot more success on your behalf, representing you in a way that's authentic to their audience. And that's just for a one-time post. Ideally, what we start to see is from that one-time post, that creator now wants to work on an ongoing basis with the brand and vice versa, where we really start to see this outsized impact from sustained collaboration. And it's not necessarily going to be LeBron James and Nike for 20 years, but it could be for 6 months or a year. And that's a wonderful thing, right? We did about a month ago, actually at Cannes, we unveiled some new research that we commissioned alongside a company called Creator Vision and the Harris Poll called the Creator Rosetta Stone. We went into it without knowing what we would find. We just polled 600 creators on their biggest pain points, their biggest strengths of their current brand collaboration experiences. And what we heard was that the biggest issue creators face today is just communication. There was a staggering number of creators, 85%, said they never heard feedback from a brand on their concept or their content draft. They just never heard any feedback, right? 89%, the stat I sort of alluded to earlier, said that they had never been asked for an insight about their audience from a brand, right? And so there's still, I think, we're still a little bit in this 1.0 creator collaboration headspace of these are hired guns, I'm just going to let them, go wild, and I'm going to give them a really tight script to read, because God forbid they go off script. And it's a very prescriptive, frankly, not fully respectful collaboration, right? Not that anyone's being disrespectful. It's just that there's somewhat arm's length nature to it all.
Yeah. And it's, to your point, it's limited in the engagement, right?
That's right. It limits the actual results. And so as a result, I would argue brands are overpaying these creators and underperforming the potential of what these collaborations could yield. Because, it's just this constant transactional attitude. Think about your favorite employees or collaborators. If you didn't spend the time to inspire them and to give them, the reason for, the vision for where things are going, you're never going to get top performance. So it's worth it to treat it like a collaboration, even if you're being completely self-centered, right? Like the business results prove it out. And so yeah, we're really focused on this communication gap that exists in the creator space, which is why we released Creator Rosetta Stone, which, by the way, is at creatorrosettastone.com. So you can check out the full findings there. But, collaboration only happens if there's communication.
It's so true. I mean, one of the things that I love to ask and then share a bit of what we've been thinking a lot about with creators, which is the fact that creators are marketers. And I say that statement like full stop, because sometimes we don't identify us in that space in there, but they're marketers in the sense that we're creating a community that's embraced to say, hey, here's some other tools and trips and strategies that we can add to what you're doing right now, which can help accelerate that collaboration, help ease some of the misunderstanding. Because a lot of those challenges are marketing, tactics and marketing engagements that fill in the gap in between how the brand operates and how a creator operates as well. So we've been kind of opening up and saying, hey, here's a safe, productive space to bring the new skills that you have to bear, to here's some other tricks in the bag that can help move you forward.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think creators in many ways are their own mini media companies. In some cases, not so many. They certainly have their personal brand, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have every trick in the bag that a marketer would develop over their career. So I love that role for the AMA, supporting creators in building both their personal brands, their personal, enterprises, as well as making them collaborators on the other side, right? Because that we try to educate and provide resources to creators as well to make them successful participants in campaigns and in marketing programs, right? But I love the AMA stepping in that way. I think that's a really wonderful role that you guys are playing.
I'm going to end where we often start. In the work that we do, we always start with the brief, right? The brief is kind of powerful, it's magical, it's mystical, it's structured, and it's kind of the space that we all come back to and we all start off with. If I were to ask you, if you could remix and renovate the brief, what are the things that you would do for the brief to get the most out of the brand experience, the most out of the engagement, and the most out of the creator?
The number one thing that leads to great work is understanding what we need to accomplish, while also understanding, especially in the creator space, that there are many ways to get to that goal. So every brief that we have, there's a real focus on what's the outcome we're trying to create. And speaking to the findings of the research study I was just mentioning, in many briefs at many agencies I've been at, there's a thing called the one thing, right? Like, what's the one thing we need to communicate to audiences, right? That's typically how it's used. I like to flip it on its head when it comes to creators, which is actually framing it as a question to the creator, which is, what's the one thing that you are going to bring to this that we didn't think of yet? Right? Where the creators can actually bring themselves and some nuggets, some insights to the output of that brief, and allowing creators the space to bring one thing to the party that makes it truly authentic to them and resonant with their communities. And I think obviously you need all the particulars in there from the brand perspective, but I think leaving that space for conversation in the very design of the brief is something we're starting to do more and more. And we're starting to see creators like sort of light up when you ask them, right? It's one of those cool things. So yeah, that's my one addition. The one thing I would add is the one thing as a question to the creator.
I think that's a great way to close our conversation. A strategic pivot from the statement to exploring the question of what's the one thing. Alex, thank you for spending this time. Thank you for sharing the insights behind Pearpop and the community and helping us think about what this next generation, next wave, next impact that marketing can have, from creator to brand and beyond. Thank you for joining us. For those listening, thank you for being a part of our AMA Marketing and Podcast. I encourage you to check out Pearpop, the content marketing platform, and check out the AMA for more resources to help you with content and brand marketing. Once again, I'm your host, AMA CEO Bennie F. Johnson, and this has been an episode of Marketing In. Thank you.